All right, thank you everyone for joining us today for our Career Pathways Across the Disciplines Computational Careers. We have some awesome panelists joining us today, and so I'll have each of them introduce themselves and give a little bit of information on the company, and then we'll go into our moderated Q&A section. So Matt, would you like to get started?
Sure. Hi there. My name is Matt Kaiella. I'm a software engineer at Google. I've been at Google for about 8 years, and I'm an alumni of URI, so happy to join today.
Excellent. Ellen, would you like to go?
Sure. My name is Ellen Richer. I am representing Appfolio, specifically We Go Wise by Appfolio. I'll kind of explain the relationship later. I'm a 2015 graduate from URI, and I'm a sustainability reporting manager currently, but I've worn quite a few different hats in my time at Appfolio.
Excellent. And Rachel.
Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to join you today. My name is Rachel Barber. I work at IGT here in Providence. I am a 1991 graduate from the University of Rhode Island. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. I've been at IGT ever since for 30 years, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer, and we develop products for our gaming business, which is casino gaming, slot machines, slot machine monitoring systems, and our lottery business. Thank you.
Excellent. Bethany, would you like to give yourself an introduction too?
My name is Bethany Hunt-Igo, and I work with Rachel from an HR perspective. And we are always looking for new talent and bright and engaging students to join our software and technology team. So Rachel and I really are looking forward to this opportunity to help our students in Rhode Island to maybe join IGT.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here. So I will just jump into my first question, and whoever wants to go first, feel free to jump on in. But could you describe what a typical day might look like at either in your position or at the company in general?
I'll go first, I guess, if nobody minds.
Oh.
So at IGT, I guess I'll speak to this in terms of an employee in the technology organization at IGT. So in the CTO organization, as we call it, employees are always working on some sort of project. So depending on whether you're participating in the lottery side of our business or on the casino gaming side of our business, either way, an employee is either working on an R&D type project or a customer deployment. And so on the lottery side, customer deployments run fairly long, anywhere from 6 to 9 months, sometimes a little shorter, sometimes a little longer. On the gaming side of things, our projects for a customer delivery are a little bit shorter. They run on average about, say, 3 months to do a end-to-end deployment of a casino systems product at a casino. But regardless, you'd be assigned to a project, or in some cases a set of projects, and you'd be responsible for giving estimates for your work. And then we have a project manager who's tasked to monitor the project, check up on everybody, and monitor risk throughout the project. And as things change, kind of replanning and making sure that we have proper expectations set for when we're going to complete each of the projects. So unless you're a project manager, maybe if you're the project manager, I suppose you're the one monitoring these projects. But if you're an engineer or anyone participating at that type of role on a project, you basically have your work slate set out for you. And after you give your estimates, you're just marching towards those deadlines.
Great. Cool. I can pick it up from there. So at kind of my branch of Appfolio is focused on, so Appfolio in general does property management software, and we cover everything from leasing AI to renter's insurance to background checks to utility management. And that's the side of things that I work on is utility management, specifically in our sustainability focused business. So just a little bit of context for kind of the rest of this discussion. So my branch is called WeGoWise. We were a small startup project that was acquired by Appfolio in 2018. So on the WeGoWise side of things, we have a strong seasonality to our work. And it's primarily kind of in the data analytics and data science end of things, as opposed to, development. And so we kind of spend half the year reporting sustainability data, so energy, water usage, usefulness of projects, financial data to Fannie and Freddie for loans and things like that. So we spend half the year needing data science to kind of run those reports, to get them out on time, and to just be disclosing this information to organizations. And then we spend the other 6 months of the year communicating those results to customers, to building owners, and letting them know where they are compared to sustainability targets, compared to the ROI they were hoping for from a project, compared to a greenhouse gas emissions limit. And we do some cost benefit analysis, and we use kind of that data science to project where they're going and how they're going to do meeting sustainability goals or meeting ROI goals for projects that they've implemented. So good amount of variety in how the data is processed through the year, and good opportunities to work on smaller customer-based projects as well as internal improvement projects.
I can talk about Google. I mean, Google is a very large company, over 100,000 employees. So I can talk about my area of it and what a day in the life of within the organization that I work in. So I work on Google Flights. If you've ever seen a flight price when you're doing a Google search, or gotten a notification about the status of your plane being delayed or on time, that's like kind of the team I work in. There's about 40 engineers that work on the kind of consumer facing portion of this. And a day of someone in that organization, projects are often, organized on a quarterly basis, like a quarterly cycle of planning. Here's what we hope to accomplish in the quarter. Projects have a strong component of working with engineers, with coming up with ideas, and looking at data or finding gaps in the product of where we're seeing less usage than we think there's potential. Working with UX designers to come up with actual pixel level mocks of what a new interaction flow or feature could be, and then working with researchers that do things like small scale interview studies or large scale qualitative surveys to get some early feedback. And then once we've kind of decided on designs of a new feature, engineers will scope out design of how can we actually build this, be able to serve it at a very large scale, hundreds of millions of queries a day, and work to achieve that. So there's within the organization, there are 5 or 6 different teams with a lead, oftentimes a manager, but not necessarily a people manager, but someone who's technically in charge of a sub area. My sub team that I run, I am a manager for 5 folks, work on data science and machine learning kind of aspects of these projects. So for example, a feature we just released yesterday is a way to track very flexible dates in the product. If you go to Google Flights, you do a particular search, you can track, flexible dates, and we built out the underlying technology to decide, when is something a change in the flight price, worthy enough of sending an email, and coming up with metrics to define that, understanding the large scale data to look at that. Lots of this is driven by engineers themselves. Like there's an encouragement for even new hires to, be creative and propose ideas and let's try to vet them across, you know, what are the best ideas that we can bubble up and build innovative features.
Excellent. Very cool.
Yep.
So for our, oh, Bethany, would you like to go?
Well, I was just going to, follow up with what Rachel said. And even though I'm not an engineer or technologist by education, my work with that group, it's a very fast-paced environment at IGT. We have modernizing technology, and there's really a sense of community at IGT that our younger population, and I say that with all due respect, really finds engaging at IGT and being hands-on with the technology and looking at the products that IGT creates and knowing that they had a part in the creation of that product is really self-fulfilling. So I just wanted to add that piece. It's very exciting.
Excellent. Thank you. And I think I'd like to build on that a little bit more. And so, a lot of our students, when they start to look for companies to work for, they are looking for jobs or companies that they can either add value to or are part of a system that adds value through service work, or they are very invested in diversity and inclusion. And so could you all speak to the sort of the initiatives that you have within your own companies, or the types of work that you do to, whether it's service, philanthropy, or providing value to the community, just outside of and inside of your organizations?
Sure, I'll go with that if we're going to keep in order here. At IGT, I started in this company when we were just a lottery product company, and we started some programs back then that are geared towards servicing the communities that we deliver lottery systems to. Because if you think about it, of course, our customers are state agencies or federal government agencies around the world. So what we've done is, we try to remember that these systems that we deploy in many cases are developed to sell tickets to raise money for the state, which goes to education, which goes to all sorts of good causes. And there are some lotteries that use all of the proceeds for, say, education, for example, or have scholarships that are designed around the lottery revenues themselves. So that's one thing on the lottery side of our business that everybody's very proud of. We know that when we're developing these products and deploying them, although gaming can sometimes have a sort of a dark side to it, and sometimes it gets a bad rap. For sure, on the lottery side of the business, the intention is to promote, build revenue for good causes. But more in general at IGT, we have a large focus on D&I. And over the past several years, I'm really proud of all of the work that our team has done to create what we call DIGs, which are diversity and inclusion groups. So we have several of these groups. Some are women communities for women leaders, which of course we have membership of men too, which is an important part of these, what we call our WIN network, Women Inclusion Network. But these are programs designed to bring colleagues together, learn from each other. There's workshops and all sorts of great kind of collaboration going on. But we also have DIGs for veteran community. We have DIGs for all sorts of super abilities, we call it DIG, for people with special abilities. And so there's a lot of focus and energy on creating a space for everybody to be themselves at work. One of my favorite things about these diversity and inclusion groups is that each of them has an executive sponsor. So for example, we have a group called Pride, which services the LGBTQ community. And the executive sponsor for that particular DIG is our CEO of gaming, who's my boss, Renato Ascoli. So when you have a CEO level person sponsoring a DIG like this, it promotes so much participation and so much really love and collaboration that brings the teams together, and it's really beautiful to watch. The only other thing I'll mention is that from a recruiting standpoint, in particular in my organization, we're always focused on trying to bring in more women and more diverse candidates. It's been very difficult, I'm not going to lie. We are just continue to focus on it though. And in general, we try to take a fresh look at our candidate slates as they come in to make sure that our recruiters are doing their job in terms of putting forth a good, well-rounded group of candidates. And our managers are all trained to basically, watch out for unconscious bias, make sure that they're being very open-minded when they review their candidates. So it's something that we're working very hard at, but I would also say that it's something that we need to continue to do more work on at IGT.
Cool. Appfolio's approach to diversity and equity is actually similar to IGT's in some way. So we have kind of a three-tiered approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion at Appfolio. So we do have a formal DEI team at Appfolio that sits under the HR organization. They kind of manage our Appfolio for All umbrella, which includes both, company mandatory and voluntary programs. They manage inclusive recruiting, including partnerships with universities and professional organizations that have missions related to recruiting folks from all different backgrounds and eliminating biases in the hiring process. And we're currently working on taking a lot of lessons on board in terms of intentionally eliminating bias in hiring processes, promoting processes, and employee feedback processes, which has been, from the manager perspective, really just incredible to learn. That DEI team also manages monthly DEI trainings, which are for the entire organization, some for people managers, some for individual contributors. And they kind of have a cycle of routine trainings, and they are also constantly adding new ones as well. They run feedback sessions, not just on the trainings, but feedback sessions in general on how Appfolio and its individual sections and teams are doing on the DEI front. And they run an annual anonymous NPS survey. So it's a net promoter score for folks who aren't familiar. And that kind of anonymously measures how all of Appfolio's employees see our DEI initiatives and if they're comfortable in their workplace, if they're happy, and if they're thriving in their workplace, whoever they are. And that kind of measures different metrics of so who's thriving and who might not be, and how do we work on that. Finally, we have voluntary organizations. That's kind of our third tier approach. Those all fall under that Appfolio for All umbrella. We actually just yesterday launched our first employee resource group called B at Appfolio, which is a resource group for Black employees at Appfolio. And it has an executive sponsor, much like IGT's model. Our CFO is running that organization currently, and we're planning to add more based on that model. They're kind of testing out the chairing system, which is run by folks at all different levels of organization. So in order to chair a resource group, you could be an entry-level employee and chair a resource group, which is really cool. And we're planning to add groups for LGBTQ employees, for veterans, for quite a few different groups overall. So that's really exciting. And we do have finally a voluntary diversity, equity, and inclusion group that I actually do take part in as well. And we work to plan educational events through the organization. So most recently I worked on the Veterans Day event because I'm military affiliated. And so that was a lot of fun and a great chance to learn and explore and find great informational speakers. Oh, and I forgot a whole pillar. We have Appfolio Gives Back as well. And so monthly we have organizations that we work with charitably. And then annually we have a big drive. We choose a different charitable organization each year, right around Thanksgiving. And we take the whole Wednesday before Thanksgiving to work with that organization to either work on collecting donations to, in some cases, assemble products or to make deliveries, whatever that organization needs most at the time. And we have kind of that Give Back Wednesday, and our offices across the country each pick different organizations that are in their local area, and remote employees are also given volunteer time off that is not taken out of your PTO, that you are able to use for volunteer causes if you don't live in the area of a local office. So for example, I'll be using that volunteer time on Wednesday despite not living near any of our Appfolio offices. So that's a great opportunity as well.
Google's approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion is very similar to what Rachel and Ellen talked about at IGT and Appfolio. Google is very publicly, talked about this a fair amount, and I've got some slides with some links that Brianne could pass along with some more information about kind of Google's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, in a similar kind of setup, there's a chief diversity officer and that reports to the CEO. There are programs that are about training managers and working on, hiring committees and interviewers, unconscious bias training for part of the performance evaluation processes. But even on top of that, like a few things I just wanted to call out about Google's like kind of public commitments. Like one thing Google's done for the past 4 years is to publish a annual diversity report with kind of like what is the current makeup of the workforce of Google and the progress in previous years. And to be honest, it's not pretty. There's still like a lot of work to do, but it's a necessary step to have some transparency and measurement. And also, as you can see, if you go through those links, it made a number of commitments of doing things to increase workforce representation with like quantitative numbers, increasing the share of Black, Latinx, Native American folks in senior leadership positions by large amounts. But beyond just the diversity of a workforce, Google is also committed to things like building products that work for everyone. So investing in product and features that specifically are designed in a way to not be biased or to work for equitably across groups. Google is committed to things like creating pathways to technology careers. So investing money for grants and programs to improve computer science education, technology education in underrepresented communities. And Google is also committed to providing opportunities for economic advancement. It's something like Google is committed to spend over $1 billion a year with diverse owned suppliers, and has numerous programs, grants, and loans for underrepresented group owned businesses. So again, I do ask you all to take a look at those links that Brianne will send along in the slide.
Excellent.
One thing I wanted to just add, following up with what Rachel was talking about, one of our greatest achievements at IGT are ASAs, and they're called After School Advantage programs. And what IGT does is they go in to underprivileged communities, or like YMCAs or YWCA after school programs, and we set up computer labs for the students and the children, so that they can begin to learn about technology and programs, and give them that opportunity to start getting acquainted with computers.
That's fantastic. All right. So obviously we have a number of year levels when we think about the students that are currently participating, and we'll listen once this is posted to YouTube. So considering that, these might be freshmen, sophomore, juniors thinking about entering into internships, and then also, graduating seniors thinking about entry-level jobs, what are some of the typical entry points for positions into your organizations?
I'm just trying to get my heart rate down after my phone just gave me a crazy alert. So sorry about that, if that came over the mic. Anyway, so at IGT, honestly, the best way to have access to the opportunities is to go onto our website and have a look at the job postings. We also offer internships at IGT, and a lot of students have come in as interns and then ended up staying on as permanent employees after their college career was over. Otherwise, we're lucky that we're in Rhode Island, in that, IGT has a pretty big presence here, and we have a very small, wonderful state. And so if you go onto LinkedIn and if you have contacts in Rhode Island, you probably don't have to look far to find somebody who knows someone at IGT or perhaps is at IGT. So I would really encourage you to reach out, look for those people, even if you don't know who they are. Again, given we're in Rhode Island, you're probably 1 or 2 people away from somebody who's at our company or knows someone here. So I strongly encourage people to use those networks and build a network, because it's one of those things where, we're all excited to be at IGT. We're excited to bring people in. So it's kind of like all you have to do is reach out and let people know that you're interested. That would be my suggestion.
Cool. So at Appfolio, we have quite a few. It depends on what you're looking for. So if you're looking generally for more in the realm of software development, our central office in Santa Barbara is actually probably one of your best bets, and Appfolio's career site is a great place to begin there. Feel free to pick through my network on LinkedIn when you're thinking about that part of the organization. WeGoWise, though, is fully remote as a team. And so we have a lot of opportunities for folks everywhere, with opportunities to kind of aggregate together in Boston. And so I can speak from the WeGoWise point of view in terms of entry-level roles. So any of our data reporting specialist roles, which there's a few of them, are entry-level roles utilizing data science skills. We do have openings right now for a benchmarking specialist or a sustainability reporting specialist on my team. And I have an internship opening under me right now, actually, for a sustainability reporting intern as well. Both of those opportunities are live on the Appfolio site. The internship link actually goes directly to my email. So that's something you could consider, but we do have many internship opportunities over the course of the year. If you're, not a senior, if you are a senior, we're familiar with URI students. We love URI students, and we pretty much always have an entry-level opening. There's also utility management specialist roles, which are kind of on the other side of our utility management organization. Those are remote or based out of Dallas, Texas, if you wanted to move to Texas, but remote is fine too. And I can, easily set you up with Christina, our contact on the side of things, as well. But, I will say that job is not as much in the computational field as much as it's kind of well, that's not true. That's not true. There's a customer service aspect to the utility management portion of the business, but it is a new fledgling project. So there is a lot of opportunity for project work on the development side, on the computer science side, which is a lot of fun because that product is still very much in its infancy. So some exciting stuff there. And there's always opportunity to innovate. We have a very open communication system. There is no red tape between people. There's, the hierarchy is incredibly informal. You can just speak to whoever you want if there's time on their calendar. You don't have to put your ideas through a chain of folks. So that's also a great opportunity. We're moving fast, we're growing fast, and that always leaves priority time for innovation.
for Google, there's internships and kind of education opportunities are kind of the classic entry points. Internships, there's actually a few levels of them. There's upperclassmen and lowerclassmen style internships. And there's some links in the set of slides that Brienne can send out with some more information about this. There's the internships, there are windows in which you can apply. So just keep an eye on those. One of them, especially the underclassmen one, there's a easy way on the website to be notified when the window opens. So I highly recommend taking a peek at that. In terms of location, Google has offices, all over the U.S. Cambridge, right outside Boston, is the closest one to Rhode Island. That's where I'm focused on right now. Currently, like right now, this year, everything is remote, and including internships and these kind of education opportunities. And some version of remote internships and education opportunities will continue in the future, but I do imagine that there'll be more and more pulled into in-person in future years. When I talk about education opportunities, there's, besides like a normal internship where you're kind of situated with a team and work on a project with a team, there are some of these education opportunities, one of them called the Computer Science Summer Institute, where it's actually geared towards as like a stepping stone towards an internship that Google offers. And again, there's an application window for this, but like the way it works is you will work either in person or remotely, depending on state of pandemic. And you'll work in kind of a group setting with other peers at your same level on projects with Google engineer mentors on projects to help build up your computer science skills in an industry setting, but not necessarily at the full-scale level of an internship. So I highly recommend these. A number of folks that I've hired or have seen grow in the organization have gone through this pathway of summer institute to an internship to being a full hire. It's a great pathway into the technology industry.
And following up on Rachel's comments, IGT currently has 81 career opportunities globally for the CTO organization, and they're around the world. And so for those students in all levels, we have some entry level positions, software engineers, or up to higher level positions with director level. But it is an opportunity to, as things are opening up, for travel, getting involved in a team environment, and those opportunities are global. So it's an interesting time.
Excellent. So
I
will.
Sorry, Brienne. One last thing. Sorry to jump in. I forgot to mention. One last thing I'd like to highlight as a entry point to technology career is preparing for technology interviews. And again, in the links that Brienne will send out in the slide, Google has a lot of information about this, about kind of the process for interviews at Google and other large tech companies that I think could be very helpful for folks as they're thinking about their, applying for internships or their first positions.
Excellent. So I'm going to remind the students that at this point, feel free to start thinking about putting in a question of your own into the chat, or if you want to ask it yourself, please feel free to unmute and ask your question. But I'll give the students a minute to think about what they might want to ask, and ask all of you to think about. So what, if there is a very specific interview process or for internships or for entry level positions, what is that? Or, when you are looking to hire a student, what should they be preparing themselves for? How do they best, get ready for an interview before meeting with you?
I would say you do your homework about the company. So the expectation is that, not only in my case is IGT evaluating whether or not we think the applicant is a good fit. We expect the applicant to be doing the same and trying to determine to their best ability whether or not the company at IGT is what they're looking for. So do your homework and know a little bit about the company so that you can ask some pointed questions. I also think, it depends on what role you're going for, but, you could be, if you're going for a programming role, for example, you should expect potentially to have at some point a tech exam type, screening to figure out, what your level of capacity is for programming, for example. But if it's more generic entry-level role that's not specific to, whether or not you're coding in Java or something, but instead maybe you're applying for a business analyst role or a project management role or something that's a little different, but also in the technology space. We're looking for not necessarily, of course, that you have a ton of experience on the job per se, but we're looking to see what your attitude is like, what your propensity for collaborating is, and whether or not we get a sense that you're the type of employee who is really going to work well with others and be personable and bring a certain positive energy to the organization. So we know that if someone's just graduating from college, that you're just graduating from college. You close the books and you learned what you learned, and now it's time to start learning on the job. So there isn't an expectation that you need to pretend that you have all this experience that, of course, you couldn't possibly have. So go in your authentic self, I would say, and try to portray who you are, what you think you can do, what you bring to the role, or what you bring to anything in life. And that gives us a way to kind of assess whether or not we think you'd be a good fit. That would be my advice. Other than, again, if you're going for a technology specific role, you should be prepared to be able to prove what you know in that space. Again, specific to, say, coding, for example.
Gosh, Rachel's answer is so perfect. Really, that's, the name of the game when I'm evaluating an entry level or an internship candidate. I want to know that you want to do the work. I want to know that you want to learn more than I want to know what kind of experiences you've had, more than I want to know, the jobs and roles that you've had before. I think we have found that our most successful interns, the ones that kind of get hired on to stay with us, because that does happen frequently, are the ones who demonstrate a commitment to learning and an interest in what we do as a company. And so from the first phone screen that I do with you, I want to know that you're passionate about the organization and about learning. And then I know that you'll have the commitment to learn anything that you don't know, or that you have had the commitment to learn the skills that you need to do the role. And so, just that demonstration of interest and that demonstration of being an intentional and active lifelong learner is just so important to us. Naturally, your experiences, of course, count for something. And all of the technology that you've worked with and of course counts for something, but don't discount yourself. Don't self-reject because you are at that entry level point. Believe that you fundamentally as a person are an interesting candidate because you are, and go in with that authentic attitude that you are, ready for this. And I'm, very, very likely to consider you at that point.
So at Google, we're often not hiring for particular teams or roles. It's at the entry level kind of pathway. There are specific listings on Google's career site, but for the most part, the interview process is going to be pretty standardized. There's often a phone screen that actually involves a technical interview. You might be doing some coding on an online application while you're on the phone with someone trying to solve a problem. And if you do well in the phone screen, you'll be invited to an on-campus or what ends up being a series of Zoom or Google Meet calls currently to basically do some more of these coding interviews. One of the interviews out of a slate will be focused on what's known as Googliness and leadership, but it's like really a view of trying to understand, get a sense of collaboration and motivation and this lifelong learning, growth mindset that Ellen had talked about. But there's a lot of emphasis on the technical aspects of it, but it's not necessarily about knowing the trivia. It's not about knowing the trivia of how to solve these technical problems. What interviewers are looking for during these technical phone screens or on-premise interviews is the process by which you go about solving the problem, right? So we're looking for you to ask questions to clarify what the problem is about, to try to understand the constraints of what we're trying to ask you to do, to start simple and try to understand where that falls apart and build up iteratively. And there's lots of good resources on the Google Careers site with some information about that and how some pitfalls to avoid when going through these technical interviews. Right? And I highly recommend taking a peek at some of those resources.
Maybe I can tell a quick little story I just thought of. Sorry, as I was listening to Matt speak. I remember when I interviewed at IGT, it was called GTech at that point. And I was a nervous wreck. And so I went through many interviews, as is normally the case if you're going through the process. And at the very last one, the man who ran the group at the time, I mean, it was a long time ago, so bear with me. It was a stack of papers that was representative of this computer program. And the stack was like this high, and it was that old green bar paper. Maybe you've seen YouTube videos of the old style printouts. But anyway, he printed out the code and he said, I'm going to give you 20 minutes and just let me know what this does. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to take me forever, and there's no way I'm going to get through all of this. So I just started going through it, and he came in like 10 minutes later, and basically all he wanted to know was how far I had gotten, what approach did I take to trying to solve it, could I communicate that this was a little bit ridiculous in a polite way, right? So the whole experience, looking back now, I realized was absolutely not about solving what was the code was doing and explaining it in detail. It was more about how did I handle the situation? Did I know anything about computers? So could I get 10 minutes through part of it at least? And I look back now and I realize that, that was something that I wish I had known going in, what it was all about, rather than the situation as it really played out, which was a bit terrifying for me. So keep that in mind, that people are looking almost for how you handle things as much as how well you handle, as much as what you know, let's say.
And I would just say, I mean, look at Rachel. She's a testament to the growth and opportunities that are available. I'm sure at your other companies too. It's, you stick with it and you learn and you're engaged and you try to, better yourself through training, and, you can rise in any organization.
Excellent. And It's definitely been hit on a little bit here and there through with some of your responses, but what advice would you have for the students, as they're transitioning, out of college and into the career?
I guess I would say that right now, assuming that your focus is to enter the workforce, your job is to get a job, right? So I would strongly suggest that you treat it that way, almost like homework. So make a plan, set some goals for yourself, and work towards those goals and whatever priorities you have. As I mentioned before, use networks if you have them, or create new contacts as part of this sort of homework to prepare yourself to actively work the work to get to find that position for you. What I found in my life and so far on my journey is that it's been continuously important to review what's important to me and check myself to be sure that I'm actively doing things to work towards whatever priorities I have in my life. So like I said, right now, your priority is probably to find a job, and that's fine. And it's nice that it's super focused, but make a plan and treat it that way. As you get older, these habits, if you build them now, are going to suit you well, because you'll find maybe, in a few years, your priorities also include financial independence, or your relationships in your life are going to become more important, or family. So your priorities are going to grow. So if you create this kind of lifestyle of actively kind of asking myself, okay, what do I care about? And am I actively trying to achieve whatever those priority or goals are for myself? I think it will serve you well. But right now, consider yourself lucky. You're probably, your main goal is looking to find a job, and just keep that top of mind and treat it like homework and like a job. And I think it'll serve you well.
Yeah. My advice, so I mentioned in my last response being an intentional learner and demonstrating that you're an intentional learner. So my advice would be start that habit now, and it'll benefit you in the future. Don't aim to pass. Don't aim to close out a course and never think about it again. Be intentional about your learning and about your self-growth. So that's learning in your courses, that's learning about yourself, and that's learning from every opportunity that is in front of you. Learn to ask good strategic questions and practice that every day. If you're in a course and you see beyond the material a little bit, ask that question, take that next step and move that leap forward. Make the effort now and let it become habit. I have found for myself and in our organization that is maybe the number one thing that contributes to somebody's growth potential or their ability to make a lateral move and try something else out, is this demonstration that they can think strategically and that they want to, that you want to ask questions and aim to learn more and innovate more. So start that habit early and set a foundation for yourself to always be thinking and inspiring yourself, to kind of find that satisfaction for yourself, to make sure you're in the right role for yourself, and to grow where you are when you find that satisfaction.
Very similar to what Ellen said. What I had prepared for thinking about this was the notion of asking questions, right? So be curious and be okay with still needing to learn, right? Like putting yourself right outside of your comfort zone, but knowing that you have to continue to be learning and increasing your skills and your abilities is the thing that's going to give you the most growth personally and in your careers, right? The most successful folks that I know at Google are the ones that are still learning and still okay with not having the answer to everything, but having the tools to figure out those answers, decades into their career. right? This is, I think, based on some, this notion of a growth mindset, that your capabilities are not set in stone. You are able to improve upon them, and some confidence in yourself that even if you don't know something, it's okay to ask questions and to gain those skills. Right? All of the advice that was said by Rachel and Ellen are great things in that direction.
I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach to this, and being more on the on the HR side. Most employers, IGT include, looking for a commitment, and I don't mean sacrificing your personal life, and we do encourage a strong work-life balance, but when you're on, you're on. And that's what we want when we see a new hire, someone who really wants to be engaged and really wants to be part of our team.
That's great. Thank you all so much. So I think we are, we're at 12:53 now. So do any of the students have any questions they'd like to ask the full group? All right. So we do have one more day of our Career Pathways event. Tomorrow is going to be breaking into the corporate world with a whole new panel of speakers. So, please consider coming back again tomorrow. Thank you for being here today. This has been absolutely fantastic. And so, we'll give the students who are still on the opportunity to chat with you in private if they would like. So, but again, thank you. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.